everybody, it's Catherine, and I just wanted to share something I've been kind of thinking about. I know you all have kids who are going to be virtual next week, but then you'll also have students in the classroom. And so we've been kind of thinking through what could that possibly look like? Like, how is that a reasonable and manageable thing? And so I sort of thought it through and I came up with what I promise is a very rough draft of how I might think about it. And this is just me personally. And I wanted to share it with you just to kind of give you an idea of how I would approach it. I'm not saying it's perfect, and in fact, I know it's not. It's just something I sort of, again, rough sketched out, but I wanted to share it with you to give you just an idea of what it maybe could look like. So I did an example using 8th grade, and so I pulled all the materials out of the Google Classroom. And so I'm looking at the lesson for building background for Sound of Thunder. And so I linked that in my lesson plan. You wouldn't necessarily have to do that. I just did it so you'd know what I was talking about. And it pulls up this same slide deck that's right here. But these are the tools that I use to create this lesson. So the first thing I did was I thought about my teaks, and I had actually already thought about my teaks because they're in that, this very slowly loading slide deck here. But I know that I'm working on vocabulary acquisition today, and I'm doing that because for reading Sound of Thunder, they have to kind of analyze it. They have to analyze character motivation, and they're not going to be able to do that if they don't know what motivation is. So we kind of introduce them to some themes of the story. And then my language objective, and yours might be different. I'm just saying if I were in a classroom, this is what I would do. We will talk and write about motivation using sentence stems, and so that kind of comes later. And I answered my 4 PLC questions. So what I want them to know and be able to do as a result of today's lesson, I want them to know the TEKS word motivation. It comes from one of those later TEKS where we're looking at plot analysis and character. So when they read and analyze the story, they're going to need to determine character motivation. So an understanding of this word is essential. And then I also want them to be able to screenshot and use snipping tool to create an image of their work to submit in Google Classroom. That's my technology objective. And so I embedded that in the lesson. How am I going to know they can do it? Well, in the lesson, I asked them to create a definition of motivation in their own words, and that's a place where I would explicitly check for understanding. And then I also asked them to write a sentence to articulate what motivates them, and that's going to show me that they've engaged deeply cognitively with one of the themes, or one of the things, the concepts I'm going to ask them to use to analyze later. And again, it kind of reinforces that vocabulary as well. And then I'm going to know they can use the flippity thing in the image of, if they can successfully submit an image of their work. These 2 yellow ones I'm going to check throughout the learning. This will come at the end, and I may have to reteach the following day or in a later lesson. If they don't get it, if they're not able to articulate what motivation is or what motivates them, there's a point in the lesson where I could pull them while kids who do get it work independently on a slide deck. And then if they're unable to submit an image of the work, I'm going to have to pull them another time to have them share their screen with me to help kind of walk them through that tech piece, or I might make a video that models, actually I did make a video that models it, so if they're not getting it after that, then I'm going to probably have to pull them. If they do get it, if they can articulate what motivates them and what the motivation is, then they should be able to do the Maslow part independently, and then we'll just kind of come back together for the close of the lesson. And if they're able to submit their work, great. I am not going to give them an extension on that. We're just going to go on with our lives. So I'm guessing my class launch would be about 3 minutes. I would review the objectives. I would let them know what the success criteria is. I'd go over the agenda for the day, and then I would make sure they have their note taker. That is this handout that's also in Google Classroom. It's just this paper. My in-class kids may have it actually printed out for them I don't know if campuses are doing that actually, but it looks like this. So they could take notes here, and then, but the thing I'm going to actually check for understanding is something else. So that would be for them to take notes. So kids in the classroom would either be watching me go over this on their own device or on the Promethean board. So I could share my screen with the virtual kids and then just project that same screen on the Promethean board to go over that initial launch. And y'all do that anyway with your going, if you have them do a warm up or whatever, it's kind of the same deal. So I would just be going over the launch slide and making sure that I was close enough so that they could hear my voice. Or I might, if I were feeling real snappy, pre-record the directions and embed audio in the Google slide, and they could all look at the directions together. Then we would do the word definition section of the lesson. So they would be looking up motivation either in paper or digital dictionary and thesaurus to create their definition. Again, they could do their rough copy here, but what I'm going to ask them to do is submit it on a designated Google slide. So I made my check for understanding slide deck, and this is how I am as a teacher. I'm going to be able to look at that student work and collect that data really, really, really quickly. And of course, it's not going to load really, really quickly because I'm trying to show it to you. But what I would do is have each student go in there. They would write their name at the top of the slide, and then the two places where I'm checking for understanding, they're going to just type their final copy in there. So they kind of can rough draft it over here, and then what they want me to actually grade or use to check their work would be here. And so the cool thing is that if I keep this view up like this, I can see their little work popping up. And so if I see a slide where nothing's happening, then I can immediately either message that kid or walk over to that kid and be like, hey, you do your work, or how can I help you? Because I'm a supportive and kind teacher like that. I would start by asking how I can help, and then very nicely encourage them to get their work done, like we do. So I'd be monitoring their work on Google Slides in real time. So then the next piece is the kids have to watch this Maslow's hierarchy video. It's only a 2-minute video. I allotted 3 minutes because it's going to take them a minute to navigate to the video and get their headphones on and everything. So the kids in class could either watch their video on the computer using headphones if our bandwidth is doing okay, or I could project the video for them on the screen. And then the virtual kids, they could either watch it we haven't all figured out our Zoom settings to be able to project sound to the kids at home. So they can either do like we did in Focus, where they turn off their camera and then turn it back on after they've watched the video, or you could project it to them if we have figured out those sound settings. And then while the video is playing, that's an opportunity for me to super quick check my Zoom chat and respond to any messages in the chat, or just take note that I might have to contact a kid later. And I could just let them know, hey, I can't answer that right now, but I will email you later, so they know I didn't forget about them. The next section of the lesson is Maslow's hierarchy slides and notes. And so if my kids, maybe I want to do this whole class because all my kids might need support with it, but if I feel like I do have some who are just going to be able to kind of fly through it, I can release them to do that while I walk the other kids through the lesson, and we can talk about it a little bit. I don't want to spend a ton of time on this because they don't need to memorize Maslow's hierarchy. They just need to know that as human beings, there are different reasons that we might do something, and that that if we're starving, then we might do some things to get food that we might not do if we were secure economically, and just that to have an understanding that people do things for different reasons. And that those reasons vary. And so if they're not able to memorize a term like self-actualization, that's fine. They don't need to memorize that. They just need to know that some people do things because they want other people to respect them. And so that's kind of the goal of it. Then we would turn and talk about things that we do. And so I, as a teacher, might model, and I did jot this down. You, of course, could fill it in with what motivates you, but why do you do things? And how does that match up to that framework that they took notes on over here? And then you have them think about and turn and talk to a neighbor. These are 3 things I do. I get up early, or I play video games, or whatever it is they do. What motivates them? Where do they see some things? And so after they turn and talk, I would ask them to go here and write a sentence that describes what motivates them. And so that has the advantage of giving me a chance to help build that relationship with students. It helps me understand them a little bit, and knowing what motivates a kid is going to help me later if they're needing help with work or something like that. And then I also get to check their sentence structure on that check for understanding. And I also make sure that they really do understand that word motivation. And then the next part of the lesson, as they're typing, I can check chat, I can monitor what's happening on the Google slide. And then the last thing is this plot flippity. And so it's linked in Google Classroom, but I also linked it here in the lesson just so y'all could see where I was coming from. And so what they do here is, because we're reading a story about hunting, they match a need with a kind of hunting. So I would be motivated to hunt by physiological is what Maslow calls it, if I was hungry. So I'd be hunting for food. But I might, if I'm motivated by love and belonging, then that might match up with me going hunting with a group of people over Thanksgiving break because I'm with my family and we're doing our annual tradition and that kind of thing. So you just have them match that up, and then that's where they submit a picture of their work. And I included here what I would call a bucket item, like, hey, if they don't get it, this is how I can help them. And there's a little YouTube video where I screen recorded myself. Look, a YouTube video of a YouTube video, very meta. So there I am, just explaining how to use snipping tools to submit work. And so that way I don't have to, as a teacher, model how to do it. I can say, hey, watch this video, and then I can monitor chat to kind of give help to kids who might need it. And then our closing, I would have them submit an exit ticket on a Google form or something, just indicating where they think hunting fits on Maslow's hierarchy. And they should be able to articulate that, because honestly, it could be any one of these things or more than one of those things. So they really can't be wrong. It's just a chance for them to submit and close out the lesson. And then while they're sort of doing their exit ticket, the in-kid class and the at home, then I can hand out my wipes, or whatever your campus is using. I can spray the desks for the kids to wipe down for transition. So just really simple kind of, you probably already do this whole deal for your lesson plans, and so it's just kind of a matter of thinking of, hey, what would be just the small difference to the kids in the classroom versus the virtual kids. They're essentially doing the same work. It's just how they access it is maybe a little bit different. And then, of course, adding on that chat piece. And I do think that I'm just saying, for me, it would be really hard to constantly monitor the chat. So I think in my agenda each day, I might tell the kids, listen, you can drop questions and things in the chat, but I am going to check it at this point, and this point. So don't get upset if it maybe goes 15 or 20 minutes before I get back to you, because I have designated spots throughout the course of the lesson to go ahead and check that chat. And so just kind of setting that expectation for them. And that is kind of my thinking. So I hope this helps. If it doesn't, I'm sorry, but we'll keep trying to figure this out, and it's going to be okay. We are going to be okay, and you're going to be okay. So let us know how we can help, and we'll do it. Thanks, guys. Have a great Thursday.